Ring around the rosy, a pocket full of posies. Ashes, ashes, we all fall down, 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 down.
Mayday, Mayday, this is Flight Orion 742 en route to Hawaii. We've lost control. Mayday, Mayday, we're going down, over.
Trauma is strange. Sometimes it feels like ice, other times like fire. It's subtle, gnawing at your mind when you least expect it. It comes in waves. Trauma is being cold without knowing why, shivering beneath the sticky heat of a scorching sun that never dims. Sometimes trauma worms its way into your psyche, your memories, twisting and contorting reality, an infiltration of the self. Trauma can be as simple as seeing things that aren't real, touching things that aren't real, smelling, tasting, and believing in nothing. When I was younger, Daddy and Mama bought me nice things. When Daddy got angry, they got taken back or destroyed. Unlike other kids, I hid in my room with the curtains drawn and made potions in puddles. I had a colorful mind prone to obsessing over the most minor things, like my Elsa doll. Until one day when Dad melted that doll on our barbecue. Punishment, he told me, eyes wild and grinning in a way I couldn't understand. Why was he smiling? If this was punishment, why did he look happy? When Dad left, relief washed over me. I felt happy, empty, and lonely all at once, but I still panicked. I tucked my phone under my pillow after every mistake, shoved my laptop under the bed, and flinched whenever anyone raised their voice. It was a reflex, a constant twitch in my hands, a spark in my nerves, urging me to hide the things that I loved the most. I buried them where I knew that he would never find them, because Dad had never truly left. I could still hear him. I smelled his cologne hanging in the air, the one that choked the air from my lungs. I felt his bony fingers wrapped around my throat. When I was 10, I hid my favorite things so that he wouldn't take them away. My dolls, my favorite pencils, and my first iPhone. I waited until Mom was asleep, grabbed a flashlight, and tiptoed downstairs, my bare feet grazing the cold marble steps. The warm air against my cheeks was a relief. I knelt in Mom's flower beds, my hands filthy as I clawed into the dirt. I was so careful. I wrapped them in plastic so that they wouldn't scuff, and I buried them beneath the roses. Daddy was never going to find them. The island was hotter than any memory. Kira, the familiar voice cutting through my thoughts, was warm, snapping me back to my harsh reality. The scorching sun searing my legs, sticky strands of hair clung to my face, and the smell of charred meat curled in my nostrils. There's a bear behind you. And there's no bears on an uninhabited island, I muttered, blindly swatting a mosquito. I sensed a shadow flop down beside me. I didn't have to open my eyes to know who it was. Quinn Carlisle was chaos, the human equivalent of a golden retriever shoving its snout in your face first thing in the morning. She was great in small doses, but not at the crack of dawn on an uninhabited island while I was dying of sunstroke. Sometimes through sheer imagination, I could convince myself that I was back home, lounging on a pool float with a Coke Zero instead of stranded on an Indonesian island. But this wasn't one of those times. Creativity was hard on an empty stomach, and reality was painful. Home was miles away and Coke Zeros were non-existent. Normal had crashed and burned. Instead, I was lying on bone-dry sand covered in mosquito bites, and no matter what position I curled my body into, I couldn't escape the glaring rays of the sun. Deserted islands were supposed to be beautiful. Yes, the shallows were right in front of me, calm water that I could envelop myself in to escape the heat. And yes, the sand was white powder boiling my soles. Behind me, thick canopies of trees stretched across a perimeter that we hadn't even measured, the heart of the island untouched. We had explored maybe 20% and were still nowhere near finding civilization. Beyond the shallows was a fat stretch of vast ocean. The sky met the sea, blue meeting blue, which bled into endless nothing, like looking directly into the void. There is a horrific inevitability to staring into darkness, but somehow blue is worse. Blue is hopeful and peaceful, and for 2 years, it had me gaslighting myself into believing that we were going to be rescued. Looking at that skyline was agonizing. I yearned for the void instead of whatever this was. And then breakfast smells seeped into my nose and broke my brain. Food. The meat had lasted over a week, rationed between us, but it would run out like everything else. Kira, Quinn's voice rang in my skull. I know you're pretending to be asleep. The sun's glare bled through the backs of my eyelids as if mocking me. I'm awake, I mumbled, rolling into my front. What is it? It took a quarter of a second for her to drop the empath act. Are you still crying over him? Quinn laughed, and for a moment I let myself revel in it. For one beautiful instant, we were kids again and thick as thieves. But then reality hit me in the face. And then something actually hit the back of my head. Nope, that was definitely Reese tossing shells at me. I am not a morning person. Cracking one eye open, I shifted onto my side. Quinn's shadow didn't quite line up with the sun, maybe because she was half in the shade, one leg crossed over the other. Filthy blonde curls threaded with dying flowers and crag grass framing her heart-shaped face. She was wearing the same outfit as yesterday, and the day before and the day before that. High-waisted shorts and what was left of her bikini top. Quinn shaded her eyes, blinking up at the sun with a saccharine smile. I could almost believe that she was the sun, her hair reminiscent of Rapunzel from Tangled. You need couples therapy, Quinn decided, turning to me with a smirk. As soon as we get home, I'm dragging you guys to a sex therapist. I know at least 3. I didn't bother responding. It was too warm to open my mouth. I had to conserve energy, and convincing her that I was asexual was too much right now. Her shadow shifted next to me, and I quickly squeezed my eyes shut. Quinn Carlisle, the quintessential high school mean girl, was the last person that I expected to become my bestie. She had been offended by my existence for as long as I could remember. In kindergarten, she stole my milk during nap time, told everyone that I pooped myself, and spread a rumor that I ate the class hamster. Middle school was worse. The second she discovered I had a crush, she called my mom and told her that I was pregnant. When we crashed, she was about as useful as the pilots. Quinn had zero common sense or survival skills. She either stayed in her makeshift tent all day whining, or complained about her lack of a phone and how her makeup had been used for medical supplies. Quinn refused to share her snacks, refused to go on a recon mission, and almost fell into a nest of spiders. She was also clingy, first to me, then Chase, and then Jem, who made the mistake of offering her a jacket. The day after being voted co-president alongside Reese, I finally snapped on her. Go with them and find us some water, now. I pointed to the kids waiting by the forest, and she slunk off towards them. Lo and behold, they found us a river a half-hour's hike away. When Quinn returned with the others, she was quieter and very sweaty. Sticky, oily hair and gross and sweaty. I thought it was the heat until Reese had finally muttered, Quinn's eyes are glowing. He was right. The girl had some seriously glistening eyes. Like pink eye, but worse. Quinn sat next to the fire muttering, "It's too hot," but shivering when we shuffled into the shade. Chase pulled her into the makeshift medical tent, and after arguing with her delirious mumbling, we managed to roll up her pant leg. Her knee had swelled to the size of an apple. Snakebite, which according to basic common sense was basically a death sentence. Sometime during her near-death experience, I guess Quinn Carlisle realized that life was too short to be insufferable. Maybe it was when she finally emerged from her tent, shivering and slick with sweat, hollow-eyed but wearing a smile that tried to look okay, before blanching at the hole that we were digging for her. Quinn was quickly ushered back to her tent, and only after I repeatedly told her, "Quinn, I'm not going to murder you in your sleep," did she finally zonk out. Chase took over, monitoring her for the next few days. We kept her fever down with a wet t-shirt on her forehead while she was spoon-fed crumbled up cereal bars from our rations. Her temperature gradually dropped and she awoke, demanding her stuffed alpaca from her suitcase. But there was no denying that she had mellowed out, spitting, "Thanks," when I offered her my water. It was progress. And now, here we were. 2 years later, and she was the conjoined twin that I never wanted. I could sense her judgy stare, fist resting on her chin. "Kira, you're literally making me depressed just looking at you." "It wasn't a sex thing," I groaned. "I just broke up with them." "Okay, but why?" Quinn shot back. "Quinn," I bit back a frustrated hiss. We only had 3 days worth of fresh water left. Our closest water source had evaporated. I was dying of heat stroke, and here she was playing Dr. Phil. "I'm trying to sleep," I said. "Go annoy Reese or something." She rolled onto her front, mumbling into her sandy elbow. "Oh, Reese is doing Reese stuff." "Well, go help him," I snapped. She blew a raspberry red in my face, throwing her weight onto me, one leg hooking around my waist, the other securing her grip, straddling me. "I'm bored," Quinn said, her toes digging into the sand when I tried to shove her off. She leaned forward, smelling faintly of brackish water. "There's literally nothing to do on this island but watch your boy sulk himself into an early grave, and Mr. Sandcastle build Buckingham Palace from sand." Her eyes turned fierce, lips parting into a childish grin. "So tell me," she said, a fuzzy blur of gold bleeding under the shade. I blinked, and for a moment she was encompassed by sunlight. "What happened?" I sat up abruptly, slapping a mosquito. "We broke up." There was nothing else to tell. Trauma brings people together, but it also tears them apart. The memory of the crash was so deeply rooted, so real, endlessly replaying in my mind. It's like watching reruns of your favorite show, but it's always the season finale. Once upon a time, we were a typical class of high school students, and then all of a sudden, Jace Crawford was dead. He died from infection, yet his voice still echoed in my head, singing a very out-of-tune Sweet Caroline. Isabel Adams was the girl who gave me her oxygen mask. Decapitated, she brought an itinerary for the trip that we used as toilet paper. The list goes on, but I digress. I truly didn't know what to expect, seeing as it was my first trip by plane. I wasn't planning on staying conscious. After taking several of my mom's sleeping meds, I was entirely out of it. Our plane caught fire, the jerk jolting me awake. At first, it seemed like I could relax. Things were under control. The pilot was speaking calmly, and a dull echo in my pressurized ears told us to stay in our seats. I remember trying to get up and being shoved back down. I opened my mouth to say, "I'm going to throw up," when the plane violently dropped. The rest came in flashes. My head slammed against the overhead compartment. Screams ripped through the cabin, the feeling of my stomach in my throat. My hair whipped up, the wind slashing my cheeks. My arm reached slowly for an oxygen mask, but there were none left. What do I do? What do I do? I don't want to die. I don't want to die. 17 years of this crap, and I was going to die in a plane crash. I awoke 3 times during our descent. The first time was to the sound of our teacher being burned alive, her skin peeling from the bone, mouth open, skeletal teeth screeching for mercy. The second time I realized I was screwed. A chunk of the wing had pierced right through my arm and I couldn't feel it. All I could feel was my own blood, warm and wet, soaking through my shirt. My head lulled, my arms feeling limp and wrong before cool hands grabbed my shoulders. I blinked through the smoke. Chase Oliver hovered in front of me like an apparition. I thought that he was a ghost, until time seemed to speed up and my senses bled back. Clarity hit. His eyes were wide, an oxygen mask strapped across his mouth. His lips were moving, but his voice collapsed into dull thuds, drowned out by screams. Smoke, thick and yet strangely beautiful, danced over charred plane seats and crawled across the floor, igniting into vivid, bright, and mesmerizing oranges. Screams. My flickering eyes dazedly watched a man made of flames burn, his flesh melting and dripping down his face. Kira! Chase's voice brought me back from the brink. Hey, eyes on me, okay? When I couldn't, he cupped my cheeks, jerking me to look at him. I felt his arms around me, his head pressed into my shoulder, his grip tightening, bracing us for impact. Impact. He screamed into my shoulder and I briefly lost consciousness again, my brain violently bouncing in my skull. I remember risking a look outside, everything falling, everything plunging into terrifying, inevitable, and suffocating blue. Impact sliced my teeth into my bottom lip. It threw the 2 of us from our seats and onto the ground. No, not the ground. Bodies, tangled limbs and torsos like doll pieces. But still, Chase held me, cradling my head in his arms. His voice became an echo, his words a mantra. It's going to be okay. And it was, kind of. We survived 2 years together, and just recently I realized that I couldn't love him anymore. I broke up with him not because I didn't love him anymore, but because it was impossible to maintain a relationship. I didn't tell Quinn any of this. She already knew after flitting around the island like a frenzied butterfly all afternoon, gathering intel from both sides. Once she had her daily dose of tea, Quinn jumped to unsteady feet, her arms windmilling before steadying herself. So, she said, you guys broke up because of circumstance and he's being weird about it. I shrugged. Pretty much. Okay, so why are you pushing him away? And don't give me the I'm going to die soon BS. Quinn folded her arms. Wouldn't you rather die with someone instead of dying alone? I laughed, and for a moment, so did the ocean waves. Oh my God, you're still into him. I glared at her. Don't. You should get back with him. Reese is being weird too because of bro code or whatever, so in conclusion, to restore peace on our island, go talk to him. Her tone didn't exactly give me much choice. Hey Quinn, can I get a little help? The new voice was a welcome distraction. Out of the corner of my eye, our valedictorian sat cross-legged, absorbed in shaping his latest masterpiece. Reese had surfer dude energy with a dash of class clown charm. He was still wearing his varsity jacket over a stained shirt and jean cutoffs, and atop his thick blonde curls sat a crown crafted from dead flowers and animal bones, woven into an awkward and precarious heap. And Quinn had made it for him for his 18th birthday and he never took it off. Reese used to act like a leader, but now everyone was dead and his only solace, his only happy place was building sandcastles. Reese didn't look up from his work in progress, patting down the sand. His eyes were half-lidded, lips curved into a trance-like smile. I used to think that losing your mind meant screaming and tearing out your hair. But no, losing your mind was just breaking. He shot us a grin. This guy stopped caring about survival a long time ago. Do you guys mind grabbing me some water from my moat? Quinn let out an exaggerated groan. You have legs. Well, yeah, Reese muttered, filling a plastic cup with wet sand and tipping it upside down. He reminded me of my little cousin. In reality, Reese was a traumatized 19-year-old trying to find an anchor. I can't be bothered getting up. Boys. Quinn rolled her eyes at me, jumping to her feet. I'll be back in a sec, alright? Wait. I didn't know why I followed her, leaping to my feet as the world jerked sideways, blurring in and out of focus. Jeez. One look at the sky and I instantly regretted it. The sun, suspended in crystalline blue, it scorched my face. I stumbled, nearly crushing Reese's sandcastle. I glanced down at my filthy, blood-streaked feet. When was the last time Kira? I jerked my head up. Quinn was frowning, head inclined. You okay? I blinked sand out of my eyes, my chest suddenly heavy like I was suffocating. Yeah, I said, but my words felt wrong, tangled on my tongue. I'll go get the water. I grabbed the plastic cup from Reese and I turned toward the sea. Beneath the late-setting sun, a familiar figure slumped in the shallows, legs crossed, his shadow stretching across the sand. I should go talk to him anyway. Quinn followed my gaze, her smile crumpling. Oh, duh, you did break his heart. Her expression lit up. Wait, I have an idea. I watched her catapult into the shade of trees, emerging 10 seconds later, with breakfast, 3 meat skewers. She tossed one to Reese and then handed one to me. That boy needs to eat, she said, and I nodded, tucking it into my jeans. I told you I'm not eating that, Reese muttered, averting his gaze, lip curling. Why not? Quinn took a bite of a bloody chunk, mouth curling in disgust. Just pretend it's chicken. Reese ducked his head, his trembling hands sifting through sand. Instead of adding it to his newest creation, he let it run through his fingers. Reese didn't look up. I have valid reasons not to eat it. She laughed. Well, you're being a baby. I'm the baby, he snapped, his head jerking up, eyes blazing. For a moment, I thought that he might come to his senses, step in and be the leader that I couldn't. But just as quickly, his gaze drifted back to his sandcastles. You're a masochist, Quinn. She gasped in mock horror. Why, I never. Seriously though, stop being so sensitive. Reese huffed. I'm sorry, sensitive? Yeah, sensitive. Quinn rolled her eyes. It's survival, idiot. You need to eat. He laughed, and it was the first time in a long time that I had heard him laugh. Do I, though? Don't be an idiot. I'm not. I'm stating the obvious. I had to fight back a smile as I twisted around, their voices dissolving into ocean waves. Quinn and Reese were totally made for each other. I left them sparring and made my way down the sand toward the shallows, a peace offering in hand. I stumbled over myself, swiping at my clammy forehead. Somehow the sun was always more intense when I was alone. As I waded into the shallows, a familiar figure blurred into view. He was always in the same spot, in the exact same position, legs crossed, arms folded, waiting to be rescued. His back was to me, thick brown curls overgrown and pulled into a ponytail. I stopped dead, something in my chest unraveling and coming apart, all the breath sucked from my lungs. Chase. Ever since I broke up with him, he had been distant, spending most of his time in the shallows and avoiding the others. Chase was a relationship of circumstance. Before the crash, he had been the quiet, pretentious kid who wrote stories in his notebooks and dragged his guitar everywhere. There was a certain charm about him, a sardonic bite to his tongue that made me laugh. I worked with him on a project and I couldn't even bother to remember his name. We were brought together through a trauma bond, and for 2 years, he became my other half, someone that I truly fell for. But knowing that we were inevitably going to die anyway made me push him away. 3 days to find clean water or I was done. I didn't have time for a boyfriend. But the more I stared at him, his puppy dog eyes and scrunched up nose, the more I realized that I had made a mistake. Quinn was right. In her annoyingly smug, I told you so way. I wasn't over him. Quickening my steps across the sand and then into the water, I plonked myself down right next to him, reveling in the cold rush of relief soaking through my shorts. Chase didn't move, his gaze following the riptide. "Hey," I managed to squeeze out, pulling out a skewer. I handed it to him. Chase shifted away from me, his gaze glued to the ocean. "I'm not hungry." "You need to eat," I said softly. Chase leaned back on his elbows with a sigh, his expression eerily peaceful. The sun was slowly setting above us, his shadow stretching across the sand, hair catching fire in vivid reds and oranges. He finally turned to me and something twisted in my gut. "And do you regret it?" "Yes," I whispered. His breast came out sharp and ragged and wrong, so wrong like something that I couldn't fix. This wasn't one of his panic attacks. I reached for his hand, curling my fingers around his, but he pulled away. He met my gaze, his eyes hollow, too blue, too wet, like the ocean, like the sky, like the endless stretch of nothing pressing down on me. "Then why did you do it?" The words tangled on my tongue, suffocating my throat. I had to," I spat, my own voice splintering apart. Chase scoffed. "Oh, you had to," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. When he turned to me, one eyebrow raised, a slow wave of nausea crept up my throat. "Sure." I found my voice swallowing down grit. Chase was pissed, but he'd get over it. He knew why I did it, so I would let him brood and act like a teenager a little longer. It was the least that I could do. Instead of continuing the conversation neither of us wanted to have, I stretched my legs out. "When we get home," I spoke up, "what's the first thing you're going to do?" He surprised me with a laugh and I found myself moving closer, resting my head on his shoulder. He didn't shove me away. Chase was warm, his hair tickling my neck like those first nights that we sat in front of the campfire with the others, waiting to be rescued. Back when I had a naive, messed up hope that everything would be okay. But days passed, food ran out, and we started dropping like flies. Infection, poisoning, jellyfish stings, and eventually as months stretched into a year, starvation set in. Starvation was a different kind of pain, hollow and gnawing, angry, monstrous. Starvation was agony, my stomach eating itself as I watched the faces hollow and bellies distend. "I left my laptop on," Chase sighed. I was playing Minecraft before I left. He tipped his head back with a groan. Man, I'd probably just raid my mom's fridge and sleep for like 2 weeks straight. I shot him a pointed look. And not one hello to your mom and dad. And Chase's lip curved, his nose scrunched the way that it always did when he was trying not to laugh. I'll skip the welcome party and go play Minecraft. But your parents would want to see you. I nudged him playfully. Sitting with him felt like home. You can't just avoid them, right? He leaned back, stretching out like a cat. I don't know, man. His amused eyes found mine. Would you go see your parents after being stuck on an island for 2 years? I had a sudden, fleeting image of standing in my mother's pristine kitchen, my feet filthy and my hair matted all the way down to my tailbone, pulling open the refrigerator, leaving streaks of scarlet and grime in my wake. I shivered, shaking away the thought. Holy crap, I muttered. Yeah, exactly. Chase chuckled, as if he had read my mind. Silence enveloped us, but it was comfortable. I enjoyed the sound of the tide coming in and out, washing over my toes. That's why I think being here is better, Chase murmured, wrapping his arms around himself, knees pulled to his chest. If we're here, we don't have to think about, He trailed off. Chase, I said without thinking. His eyes were on the ocean. What? Am I going to die? I whispered, swallowing a sob. He didn't answer right away, and somehow that was worse. Do you want me to sugarcoat it or tell you straight? Sugarcoat, I hesitated. Wait, no, just tell me. I caught a smirk, the one he tried not to show. You sure? Positive. Something ice cold slid down my spine when he turned to me suddenly, his eyes wide. We're going to starve to death, he said softly. The meat we have isn't going to last, and we still haven't found water. Chase let out a spluttered laugh. So unless a miracle happens and it actually rains, then yeah, you're going to die. Oh, I'm going to die, but you're not, I shot back. Chase stubbornly avoided my gaze. I've recently grown impervious. I shoved him. Because we broke up. He winked. And other reasons. Hey, Kira! Quinn's yell came from behind me. Did you guys finally kiss? I caught her figure jumping up and down and my side eye standing next to Reese. Makeup sex? I buried my head in my knees. I mean, sure, I would do it, Chase spoke up. I spluttered. What? I would kiss you, he said. If I wasn't. I cut him off, mocking his voice. Impervious. He didn't laugh this time. Kira, why are you here? His words were sudden, piercing like knives. Because you're my friend. No, I mean, why are you here? Chase gestured around us and the sun hammered down on my forehead. My body felt wrong, stiff, and too weak to stand. I felt myself tipping into him and he sprang up, his shadow stretching beneath the relentless sun. You're starving, dehydrated, and suffering from sunstroke. You're going to die. His face twisted. You need to find shade, Kira, now. Oh, so he could bake in the sun all day and I couldn't. I found myself laughing, though my body felt like lead, my thoughts drifting. What's wrong with her? Quinn's voice was a relief. I glimpsed her hovering over me, arms folded, curls stuck to her face. The golden blur which was Quinn Carlisle was spinning around with the rest of the world. Sunstroke, Chase hissed. If we don't cool her down, she's going to die. Grab her legs. Quinn hesitated. But we... Just do it. Chase. Quinn's voice hardened. He let out a frustrated breath. Yes, I know, but she's going to die. Their back and forth was suddenly drowned out by rumbling. Bear was my first thought. But islands didn't have bears, right? Lying on my back, Chase and Quinn looming over me, I watched them gesture wildly, speaking in hissed whispers before the rumbling grew louder. I blinked. Right over the horizon, just beside the burning ball of light that was the sun, there was a dot. I blinked again, slowly tipping my head. The dot moved, and then it moved again. No. I shook my head, my heart clenching in my chest. It was coming towards us. By the time the two of them noticed, their heads tilted back, wide eyes searching the sky, I was screaming. I was on my feet, my body straining, my limbs rebelling. My head was spinning. It was so hot, sweat dripped down my face, sticky and wet on my skin. I hadn't noticed my hands, as sticky with sand and with my own blood. Now everything was hitting me. The force of the heat, my hair hanging in bloody, tangled streaks, the bitter taste of metal glued to my tongue, still writhing at the back of my throat. Oh God, I was so filthy. I swiped at my clothes and my face, trying to remove the bugs crawling from my mouth, the endless, writhing maggots. Tripping over my feet, I waved my arms, a strangled cry erupting from my throat. Hey! I jumped up and down, adrenaline driving me further. The dot became a smear and then a moving object. I could see the whirring blades of the propellers ripping through the suffocating blue. Helicopter. Some primal noise ripped from my mouth. I dropped to my knees, sobbing, my chest heaving. Was I laughing or crying? The helicopter hovered, beginning its descent, cool air whipping my cheeks. I could see the glass panels, words etched into the exterior. United Aerospace Corps, emergency response. Underneath the sunset, Quinn ran in frantic circles, her lips curled into a feral grin. Hey! She shouted, arms flailing. Even Reese was standing now, eyes wide, arms flailing. Chase stood frozen, eyes glued to the approaching helicopter, hair whipping across his face. His hopeful smile faded. We can't get on that helicopter, he yelled over the screech of its descent. Kira, you know that we can't. I stopped jumping up and down, my gut twisting into knots. He was right. People would ask questions that I didn't know how to answer. Quinn would sing like a canary and Reese wasn't exactly mentally stable. I saw their hesitation. Quinn stopped running in circles and Reese slumped back onto the sand. But this was a rescue. This was surviving and leaving the island. This was going home. It's okay, Quinn yelled over the helicopter. We can stay. Reese, to my confusion, nodded eagerly. It suddenly felt like I had been stabbed through the chest. Are you insane? I shrieked. I stumbled to Chase, wrapping my arms around him, but he was cold this time. Just come with me, I said, my stomach twisting at the thought of going home and knowing what we had done. I wanted nothing more than to go home with him. I grabbed his face, cupping his cheeks as his expression went slack, the spark leaving his eyes. It'll be okay, I promise. I clung to him, my nails biting into his skin, and for a moment he was nodding, tears in his eyes, lips parted like he was about to say, okay. But then he pulled away. We can't go, he whispered, his voice shuddering. I nodded as the helicopter touched down. Sand kicked up, whipping my face. Figures emerged through the haze, but their voices were indecipherable over the drone of the blades. I focused on Chase's stupid and stubborn glare. I know what we did, I said quietly, swallowing my words. But we don't have to say. I desperately grabbed for his hand. We can go home. He only pulled away, and in 3 steps, he rejoined Quinn and Reese. Miss. The voices were getting louder, voices that I didn't know. Strangers. When they grabbed me, I screamed, "Sweetie, can you hear me?" I was violently dragged backward, my mouth moving, but no sound coming out. Wait, what about them? When my voice didn't work, I lurched forward. No, wait, what about them? You're leaving them behind. I was gently picked up and lifted onto a plastic seat that smelled of bleach. The door slammed shut and I twisted around, pressing my face against the glass. I have friends down there, you need to go get them. Why aren't you listening to me? They're right there. I screamed, swallowing bile that tasted like it was moving, like wriggling, writhing fingers. Kira, you've been through something traumatic, but you need to look at me, okay? The sudden voice rattled my skull. I blinked. A woman with short blonde hair sat across from me. Kira, she said softly, you are the sole survivor of the Orion 742 crash. Each word cut through the fog, reality briefly splintering through. But it was so cold, so colorless, so wrong. She squeezed my hands. There is nobody else, she said gently. I shut my eyes, slamming my hands over my ears. No, I told her over my sharp breaths, my pounding heartbeat. No, there's... Kira. My eyes flickered open. The woman's gaze pierced me. Are you saying that there were survivors on the island with you? My eyes found the window and outside as we ascended. Chase stood with his arms folded, eyes locked on me. Quinn and Reese were at his side. Quinn on her tiptoes, waving, and Reese offering a lopsided smile. As if Chase could hear the woman's words, he slowly shook his head. I remembered I was wearing his skull, the prongs cutting into my skin, his blood painting my face. But it felt right, like I had a piece of him always with me and always near me. I was never going to let go of him. Why did you do it? Chase's words from earlier slammed into me, quickly followed by my answer. I had to do it, to survive. Kira, the woman leaned forward, her piercing eyes ripping through me, as if she could see everything that I had done. Come on, baby, you can talk to me. Outside, Quinn turned and catapulted into the trees, dissolving under the sun's rays. Tears stung my eyes, my vision feathering. No. I let out the words that I had been holding on to. Denial tasted like vomit. Vomit tasted like Chase. I couldn't resist looking for Chase, whose eyes found me one last time. I wanted to believe that he forgave me. His smile was small, fleeting, and forgiving, like maybe he still loved me, before turning and vanishing into the trees. I'm the only survivor, I whispered, each word catching in my throat. The woman leaned back, her eyes searching my face before looking back towards the beach. Her lips curved into a knowing and terrifying smile. Good. But I couldn't deny that her gaze never left Reese, who still stood there, staring up at me as if she could see him. Blinking rapidly, she shook her head. Stevens, the woman barked, pulling a talkie from her pocket, shooting me a quick and less than reassuring smile. Potential activity detected on the unnamed island of the Orion survivor, she said, requesting deployment of a full team to conduct a thorough investigation. Needing personnel to meet us at the second entrance point. I currently have a level 3. She paused, her index bouncing on the button. Preliminary assessment indicates that there may be potential level 8s on the island. Her lips curved into a smile. Stevens, I've never seen anything like it. A response crackled through the static almost immediately.
Copy that.
A male voice confirmed.
Can you specify the nature of the activity on the island, ma'am?
The woman didn't answer. Instead, she tucked the talkie back into her pocket and leaned closer, smiling wide. "And don't worry," she murmured, grasping my hand firmly. "Everything is going to be fine. So, who exactly are these friends?" Susan Corn, Decky, Rain, Nelson Asada, Die Screaming, Meek, Asher, Dalamagara, That One Woodsman, Sonic, GMD, Leon Knott, Takio Zarilla, Mina Lynn Kidder, SWAT, Damon McCory, Mark Norman, yours truly, Dino, Lunas TV, Wayward Son, Deuce X Nihilo, Big Country Allen, Pamela Shockley, Sleepy Shroomy, Caleb Windsor, Kathy McGuire, Paige Martin, Richard Friends, Shrimple the Shrimp, Happy Massacre 91, Jacob Bartlett, Miss Eldridge, Casey Long, Justin Fotenauer, Roley, Sanjay Anthem, Lone Wolf Sam,